Okay, for this assignment, I'm going to do the odd problems and I'm going to leave all the even ones for you to do. So when you submit your homework, you only need to submit your even problems. It's going to seem like we have a lot of problems in this assignment, but most of them are going to go really quick. If you ever need to pause or rewind the video, feel free to do so. And my suggestion is that you work on this assignment one section at a time. Maybe watch me do the first section and then you try to do the first section on your own before you watch me do the second section. So with this first section, we're going to convert a fraction to a decimal. Now we could do this by hand. I'm going to show you one time how to do it by hand, and then I'm going to do the rest by the calculator. So all a fraction is a division, and if we wanted to do 3 divided by 8, we would have to do old school long division, and we would have to see how many times does 8 go into 3. Well, 8's bigger than 3, so I would have to add a decimal and then add zeros behind it. So now how many times does 8 go into 30? It goes in there 3 total times. 3 times 8 is 24. I would subtract, carry your decimal down. 30 minus 24 gives me 6. I would bring down a 0. 8 goes into 60 7 times. 7 times 8 is 56. 60 minus 56 is 4. Add another 0, bring it down. 8 goes into 40 5 times. So my decimal was right here. So this is going to equal to 0.375, and I can always add the 0 in front of my point. So 0.375. So doing it by hand is possible, but that is not going to be the way that I suggest you do it for this class or your Math 143 class. So everybody will be required to have a calculator. Your calculator may be different than my calculator. I'm using the TI-30XS. It's very similar to the TI-30. If you have a TI-83 or TI-84, they can all do the same thing. Just figure out how to do this on your calculator. If you have questions with how to do these same steps on your calculator, please let me know. But all we need to do for this class is do 3 divided by 8. Remember, a fraction is just a division. Press enter, and it should give me the decimal 0.375. All right, so my next one, I'm already going to jump to number 3. Number 3 is 5 divided by 16. So I'm just going to clear this out. 5 divided by 16 is going to be 0.3125. So that's equal to 0.3125. And that's all I'm looking for in this first section, is to make sure that we know how to use our calculator to convert to a decimal. So once again, I'm going to leave number 2 and 4 for you to do. Okay, so for the first set of problems, I was looking for the whole exact decimal value because those decimals I didn't need to round. But for this next section, some of these fractions will give us decimals that go on forever. So we'll need to round these. So in this section, I'm asking you to round to the nearest thousandth place, which is 3 decimal places. So if you see tens is 1 decimal place, or tenths is 1 decimal place, hundredths is 2 decimal places, 1,000ths is 3 decimal places. So once again, I'm just going to go straight to my calculator again, and I have 3/7. So I'm going to clear everything I got. That's just 3 divided by 7. And that's equal, if I round this to 3 decimal places, 0.4285. So that 5 is going to make that 8 round up to a 9. So 0.429. 0.429, and I can always add the 0 in front of it if I want to. I should also mention, for all of my videos, make sure that you're watching these in HD, or else that calculator is going to be really blurry. So for number 7, I have 5 divided by 15. And I can see that this one is 0.33333, and the 3 goes on forever. So I'm going to look at the third 3, look to the right, it's another 3. So this one would just be 0.333. Another way that you may write a decimal that repeats itself would maybe be 0.33 with a bar over the 3's. That lets you know that those 3's are repeating forever. But since I'm asking you to round this one, give me the rounded answer. And number 8 should be very similar to that. Okay, so with this next set of assignments or questions, we have mixed numbers, and I want to convert this mixed number to a decimal. So this one's a little bit trickier. A mixed number, I have a whole number. In this first one, I have a whole number, which is 5, and then I have a decimal, which is the 7/8 part. So if I'm going to convert this, the whole number is not going to change. The whole number is just going to be 5, but my decimal is going to be whatever my fraction is. I'm going to clear all of this. So that would just be 7 divided by 8. And in this section, I'm asking you not to round. So that gives me 0.875, but I see a 0 in front of it. But I have to remember I only typed in the 7/8 part. So that would be point, and I've already forgot it. Let me pull it back up. 875. All right. So one more way that I want you to get used to writing mixed numbers. A mixed number is simply a whole number. So this is 5 plus the fraction. So 5 and 7/8 is the same thing as 5 plus 7/8. So another way that I could type this in, and I suggest that you use parentheses, is 5 plus 7 divided by 8. I'm going to close my parentheses. So that 5 plus 7 divided by 8 is the same thing as 5 and 7/8. And you can see that that gives me 5.875. So that's the way I'm going to do it for number 11. Number 11, I'm going to open parentheses, 3 plus 5 divided by 32. Close your parentheses. Gives me 3.15625, and I'm asking you not to round for this one. So 3.15625. 3.12625. I did that wrong, but I can fix it. 15625. So I don't need this. Sorry about that. So 15625. All right, so that would be number 11. Once again, I'm leaving number 10 and 12 for you to do. All right, with this next set, I want to convert a decimal to a fraction. So once again, I could do this by hand. 0.25, I'm going to show you this one time. This is the tenths place, this is the hundredths place. So if we see this, this is the same thing as 25 over 100, but then I would have to simplify that, and that would simplify to 1/4. But once again, I'm not going to suggest that you do it by hand. I'm going to suggest that we learn how to use our calculator. So once again, depending on which calculator you have, the steps may be different. I'll be glad to help you. If you want a TI-30 for this class, this will be the one that I use for the entire semester. You don't have to have it, but it may make things a little bit easier if you do have it. So for this one, I have 0.25, and I could have wrote the 0 in front, didn't have to. But then with my calculator here, and I'm going to open this one up a little bit, I see right here I have fraction to decimal. So I need to hit second and then table, and it converts that fraction to decimal or decimal to fraction. I'm going to press enter, and that gives me 1/4. So it's exactly what I wrote down when I did it by hand. I wrote down 1/4, and that's exactly what the calculator is giving me. All right, so let's look at this next one. I'm going to jump down to number 15. So 0.3125. I'm going to hit second table again, enter, and this one gives me 5/16. So this is 5/16. All right, so once again, I'm just teaching you how to use the calculator. I'm going to leave 14 and 16 for you to do. I'm going to do 17. So 17, and the 1 or the 0 in front is usually never seen. But I have this time a whole number, right? This is kind of like a mixed number except it's with a decimal. I have 1.1. I don't treat that any different. Just 1.1. And then I let the calculator convert. And this is going to give me an improper fraction of 11/10. And it should give me an improper fraction because I had a whole number in there. So my numerator should be bigger than my denominator. So number 18 should be very similar to that one. Okay, so next we're going to look at adding and subtracting fractions, and I want to write my answer as a fraction. Once again, I'm going to show you how to do this one by hand. We're going to go to the calculator for most of these though. So I have 3/8 plus 4/8. So we always have heard that we have to have common denominators before we can add or subtract. And in this case, we have a common denominator. So if we have that, we just want to add the numerators. That's the value up top. 3 plus 4 gives me 7. And I keep my denominator. So that gives me 7 over 8. And I would check and see if I wanted to simplify or if I could simplify. I'm sorry. But if I just go to my calculator can handle that too. So it's 3 divided by 8 plus 4 divided by 8. I'm going to press enter, and my calculator is going to give me this answer as a decimal. But I'm looking for this answer as a fraction, so I can't forget what I just learned. To convert from a fraction to a decimal, I hit second, and then table, and it gives me the value 7/8. So although I could do this by hand, I'm just going to do these in the calculator. So I'm going to jump down to 22, which is 5/12 minus 4/12, and I can do this one in my head pretty easy because I had a common denominator. 5 minus 4 is going to give me 1/12. It shows up as a decimal as 0.0833333, but when I convert this to a fraction, I should get 1/12. So that one would have been a lot easier for me to just do in my head than to try to do it by the calculator. All right, but you're going to see with number 24, starting with this one, I don't have a common denominator anymore. So if I wanted to get a common denominator, the easiest trick that I have, I'm try to zoom in here, is to simply multiply by the other denominator. So if I wanted to get a common denominator, I would multiply this one by 5, because my denominator over here was 5. I'm going to multiply this one by 8, top and top, because my denominator over here was 8. And if I do that, 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 8 is 40. 4 times 8 is 32. 5 times 8 is 40. And now you can see I have a common denominator where I would just add my top two, and I get 47 over 40, which would be an improper fraction, but that would be my answer. But that's way too much work to do, especially since we can use our calculator. Sorry, I'm trying to zoom back out here. All right, so let's just type all of this in our calculator, and I'm sorry for making you dizzy there. So I'm going to grab my calculator, and I'm just going to type in 3 divided by 8 plus 4 divided by 5. And I'm not doing it now, but I would encourage you, until you get used to using your calculator, you may want to put parentheses around these divisions. Let me clear that out and I'll show you what I mean. So you may want to open up your parentheses and then do 3 divided by 8. And that way you can see that that's a fraction. Plus, open up your parentheses, 4 divided by 5. And you can see that that's one single fraction. Press enter. I'm going to convert that to a fraction. Right now it's a decimal. And I should get 47 over 40, which is exactly what I got when I did it by hand. All right, 26, 5/12 minus 4/5. 5 divided by 12 minus, I forgot my parentheses on the first one, and it's not necessary, it's just so you can help see that it's an individual fraction. But I got 5/12 minus 4 divided by 5, and I'm going to hit convert to a fraction, and I get negative 23 over 60, so negative answers are fine. Negative 23 over 60. And one thing the calculator is going to do also is always going to give you the simplified version as your answer. So you don't have to worry about simplifying it if it's from a fraction. Sorry, y'all. All right. All right, so 27, I'll let y'all do. All right, so here we're going to add and subtract mixed numbers. So here with mixed numbers, I always use parentheses. So the first one, I have 1 3/8. So we have to remember how we type that in. It's going to be 1 plus 3 divided by 8. Close your parentheses. Plus the next mixed number is 2 and 5/6. That's going to be 2 plus 5 divided by 6. And I'm going to press enter. And that gives me 4.2083333. So now this one gets tricky because I want to write my answer as a mixed number, if you can see the instructions up there. So write your answer as a mixed number. So my whole number is 4. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down. My whole number is 4. So now I got to figure out what is that fraction. So here's how I'm going to suggest do that. So I've already written down the whole number, so I'm going to subtract what that whole number is. I'm going to subtract 4, press enter, and that just leaves me with the decimal part, and now I'm going to convert that to a fraction, which is 5/24. So that's 4 and 5/24. So that one was tricky. Rewind that if you need to see it again. I'm going to do one more example, except this one's just going to be with a subtraction sign. So I have 3 and 5/12. So 3 plus 5 divided by 12. Close my parentheses. This time it's a minus 1 2/3. And just because it's a minus in the middle doesn't mean that I'm still not adding that 2/3. So that's 1 plus 2/3, just with a minus between the two mixed numbers. I'm going to press enter. So once again, my whole number is 1. So I'm going to write down 1 because I know that's my whole number. And now I have to figure out what is that decimal written as a fraction. So I'm going to subtract 1. And that way I'm only dealing with the decimal, which was 0.75. And then I'm going to turn that into a fraction. And that gives me 3/4. So it's 1 and 3/4.